I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Liz Goll Lerner to talk about her article in the November-December issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Liz, welcome. Thanks for being with me today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Oh,
I'm glad we had some time to catch up before we went live here.
yeah.
Liz, you wrote an article in the magazine and it's called The Power of Hope. And let's start with what inspired you to write about hope?
I think at the time, um, let's see, this was written really a couple months ago, right? A few months ago.
Well,
And
I don't know when you wrote it, but we didn't publish it till November 1st. So it came into us about 3 weeks
yeah,
into the month
so
of
so
October.
it feels longer.
I know. Yes.
Um, but with the news media and people, being upset about one thing or another or afraid of one thing or another, um, I started to notice the things that were different. So in the article, I talk about a couple of New York Times articles that I saw. One was about the young man who is teaching kids now about math through rap,
Mhm.
and it was a student who didn't couldn't do math, didn't like school, was kind of out there, and found this way to reach himself and people. And so there was this wonderful, transformation that took place, and it was so hopeful that these children could now understand something that they couldn't understand before. And then there was another article I saw, and now I'm blocking what that was in the magazine. I don't know, but it was just the idea of seeing people doing things that contributed,
Mhm.
that brought us together instead of separated us or focused on division or anger. And it made me think a lot about how finding connection and finding community, or even finding something in the newspaper that makes you smile, um, can change everything and change one's outlook on the day, on the minute.
Yeah.
Um, Seeing, there was this really cool thing I saw uh, about this bus driver who just told everybody to leave their cares in his hand on the way out of the bus. And it's these little things, and people left feeling lighter, and they reported.
Yeah.
And there's so much more we can appreciate and have and enjoy if we focus on hope. It's like a superpower, I think.
Hope is a superpower. Yeah. And it's something that we can all do if we want to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we can all find hope in something, I think, or find at least something positive. Maybe hope is another level,
Yeah,
because
I
not
think
everybody can feel
so.
hopeful in certain situations, they don't think. And so, but
Right.
we can always find something a little positive in our day, in our world,
Right.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes people feel um, hopeless,
Yeah.
and um, how do we turn that around? You know, what actually gives us a little boost? And it might be somebody smiling, or it might be finding a penny on the sidewalk, that the idea of something good or better to come, or kindness, can change a mood, and
Hmm.
maybe that can help uh, either get back to neutral, where there's the possibility of good things, versus, oh, the weight of the world is too much. It's like, how do we find um, something, whether it's volunteering, doing something. Um,
Getting outside of ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I find the biggest antidote A lot of negative emotions, particularly anxiety, is actually finding something constructive to do.
Mhm.
Because exactly as you said, it takes us outside of ourselves and into service in some way.
Thank you for that. And I didn't know I was going to talk about this, but I think it's fitting. And last Sunday, not yesterday, but the Sunday before, I did a talk at the Greater Baltimore Center for Spiritual Living. And the Greater Center for Spiritual Living, they have a theme and they want all the different organizations to talk about sort of the same thing. You can deviate some or you can be totally rogue and they won't get angry with you. But, of course, with Thanksgiving, it was around abundance and gratitude. And while I was sitting here thinking, what hasn't been said about that, right? Abundance and gratitude. This question formulated that I'd never thought about before is what comes first, abundance or gratitude? Or
Mm,
and I determined that it's actually circular.
mhm,
We can have one and then the other. And that's what you're talking about. To have hope, we can also have this feeling of gratitude can give us hope.
mhm.
We can be grateful for things that haven't shown up yet. We can be grateful because we believe they're coming or we're putting things in place. So I think you're talking kind of the same sort of thing here about what we do now, kind of manifests itself down here, but it's circular in a way. The more hopeful we feel, the more grateful we feel. The more grateful we feel, the more hopeful we feel, the more we're out there kind of giving and sharing. I don't know. Do you buy that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I do, but I think where I got a little off the rail there was I feel like there's something in between the the what you see and the gratitude, like in the sense that um coming to terms with whatever that feeling is that the person is having.
Hmm.
I think like you were saying, maybe hope is too big of a leap when we were talking before, and I'm thinking, well, maybe gratitude is too big of a leap. Um, that maybe there's a step in between of just calming down and being able to be present, be you know, take stock of just what is, and maybe it's the surprise
Mm.
too.
Yeah.
Right? Like the surprise of the penny on the street, or the surprise of the bus driver saying something like that, or the surprise that somebody actually smiled. Um, and then that maybe opens the heart a little bit. And then maybe then we get to, go, oh, I'm really, glad. I think sometimes people might think of gratitude as a lofty thing. And maybe I was doing that when you were
Mm.
saying it. And I was thinking, oh, well, if I'm glad that somebody smiled,
Yeah.
that's gratitude.
Right. And I don't think we even have to say the word or even feel, it's just a feeling that says that
Ah,
all of a sudden we realized, yeah, people were getting off that bus just a little bit lighter. They just
yeah,
felt a little lighter. They probably some of them passed that on to other people that day.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
I
that's, yeah.
in a program I used to run, one of the sessions was about service. And we would talk about how the tiniest thing could affect so many people.
Mm.
So, and actually guess I must be into buses today, but I remember one of the examples was if you got on a bus and you were kind to the bus driver, like actually acknowledged the bus driver, said hello, how are you? Thank you, or got off and said thank you, that might affect every other person who gets on that bus, right?
Yeah.
Because their day may have been changed, or their attitude might be, oh, not just another passenger, but in order to feel better, to be kind, to be appreciated, could affect who knows how many hundreds of people that day.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you
true.
little tiny things.
Yeah. And we have such power in that. If we're in a good space ourselves,
Mhm.
we have such power. I remember years ago when I first started learning about this whole idea of, being in the present and kind of I say trying to because I didn't quite buy it yet, but just, shifting my thoughts enough to actually affect things around me. And
Yeah.
I was standing in line at, I think it was in a bank, and there was somebody at the teller office, and the teller wasn't quite screaming, but she was losing her patience. The woman was screaming at her. And I just stood there and I dropped into my heart and I just sent them both love. And I thought, I'm doing this for me because I could feel myself getting all like
Sure.
up, and people were grumbling behind me and they were complaining about one or the other, that they pick sides, what's wrong. And I tell you, I have to believe that it was me, but it could have just been, it was time. All of a sudden, I think the customer said, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Let me calm down. I'm taking this out on you, and I know it wasn't your fault. Can we start over? Something like that. And I'm like, you know,
You know
but
what?
it was a manifestation in a way that I had never experienced before. And whether it was my energy or not, or maybe there were some other people doing the same thing,
Right.
it it calmed me down and got me not to be in that game with them that they were playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have that power. But we don't, I said, if we're in a good place ourselves, if we're in a hopeless place, there's other steps to get to that, as you're
Very
talking
hard to
about.
get there.
So I don't want
Yeah.
to do that spiritual bypassing thing and say, oh, just jump over there and be hopeful and
Yeah.
happy.
No,
Be
there's stuff
grateful.
to work through.
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
not in that space. But what I think is so interesting about what you're saying is um, sometimes it really doesn't take much to change the energy in a space.
Yeah.
And it's like what I always talk about with the still pond and the little pebble, that one little pebble and that huge ripple that affects the whole pond. And there may have been other people in there trying to be calm or calm themselves down, or, you know, wish for calm, wishing for calm. Um, but love is powerful.
Yeah.
Love is powerful. Love is an element. And when we send it out and, we're not trying to control it, uh, because it can't be controlled, um, then we can let go and see what happens. And there's a good chance that sending love to those people's hearts or their situation just was enough of a little pebble to
Yeah.
just shift something,
I was practicing. It was kind of like the parking place, the parking spot
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
right.
let me see. I'm here. Let me try this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to your article because you write that communication is at the heart of all our interactions, and we could do another interview just on that for sure, days. We could talk about that for hours. But for now, what's the most important point you want to make about communication as applies to what we're talking about hope and community and connection?
You know, I think it's really everything we've been talking about in this whole conversation um, so far. That just in terms of explaining what I mean by communicate, what you read, um, communication is the only way that we impart information to each other, whether it's a feeling or an idea or a plan or whatever. And it's become less and less personal as we text and email and things like that. But tone and body language and facial expression and um, rushed or not rushed, or like all different kinds of things that go into communication affect all of our relationships and the interpretation of what we're saying, or the acceptance or lack of acceptance of what we're saying. Like the ladies in the bank, right? Like when that woman might have said, hey, I'm taking this out on you. I'm really sorry. Can we start again? Like that is the power. Both of the experiences, her experience of yelling and the experience of changing that, is the whole epitome of how relationship exists, right? And the shift in saying, hey, could we start over? Like I know I've probably hurt you and I was wrong, but could we just start from here?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm. It defeats
um,
everything. Yeah.
changes everything. And so um, when when us humans, we humans are having something going on internally, unless we're really conscious about that, that affects how we show up. Whether it's the grocery store or in this interview or, getting on that bus or whatever it is. And that affects, like you were saying, Ginny, what was going on with those people at the teller window was affecting the whole line.
Yeah.
And people were either jumping on to, like they were watching a prize fight, or
Right,
they
exactly.
were, or they were, like trying to calm themselves and get into that, drop down into their spiritual practice, or, just wishing it would stop. Um, Whatever was going on there affected everybody.
Mhm.
So for the best result, we want our communications to be as clean and as thoughtful and hopefully as compassionate as possible. And none of us are going to be expert at that. Like, we are human and things show up, but I feel like what helps us be more hopeful is when we ourselves can actually get a little bit of control
Mhm.
over what we're doing, because I think it also maybe connects to feeling like, okay, well, maybe there are ways to have things that feel out of control be more stable, more in control. I don't know. It's just a thought.
No, that makes such sense because if we can, and I know control's an illusion, but we can
Yeah.
control, our responses. We can control what we're putting out there.
Right.
It takes practice, but even just thinking about controlling it, just thinking about, oh, I want to calm down here,
Right.
but that does, I think, change our whole outlook on life, which gives us where we can see what we can be hopeful for. I'm kind of going around the bend getting there, but it's
No,
what
but
you're
that's
saying,
true.
all
It's
connected.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, what you're saying about control being an illusion, I think it depends on how we think about the word, right?
Yes.
Like, um, it's not about controlling,
Hmm.
right? It's in the way that I'm thinking of it, it's more about how do we actually tune in,
Yeah.
get conscious, make a decision about how we want to show up. And
Mhm.
if there's something that's troubling us, then how do we communicate about it so that it can actually be heard? Like that we can actually be heard. And then that person can actually be heard too. Like that we actually listen to what they're saying after we share all of
Yeah.
our.
It takes practice, doesn't it? Liz, you also talked about how we can become emotionally overwhelmed in relationships, in conversation, communication. And you listed a few ways that we can kind of, what I want to call, stay in the field of hope by regulating that a bit more. Do you want to talk about one or two of those?
Yeah, you want to tell me what I listed?
I don't, but I can tell you real quick if you want. If you want me to look real quick. Yeah, I should have printed your article as well.
No, it's fine. I can just go. Um, I think certainly kind of what we're talking about, stepping back, taking a moment,
Mhm.
especially if something's feeling overwhelming, like just kind of take a breath and step back and notice, what's happening in the body.
Yeah.
If people are feeling tight, or the urge to flee, or whatever, it's really kind of noticing and just remembering that in that moment, you look around, get a sense of where you are, that you're okay in that moment, unless there's something really big happening and you're not, and you need to get out of there, wherever that is. But the idea of just remembering that we actually are okay in the second that we're in,
Mm.
and then we can keep that going and make some decisions. Again, it's that moving from a reactive place to an intentional place. And yes, that does take practice, but the biggest thing about that is just starting to get aware. That's
Mhm.
really all it takes, is to become aware. Um, and then other ways to um, feel less overwhelmed, depending on the situation you're in. If you're on a bank line, maybe you want to stay there. But you know, recognizing that it's good to get some air, you know, take a walk, get grounded. Let movement is a wonderful way to just let things kind of pass through us. And fresh air, also wonderful. Um, is there anything else you can think of, Ginny? That
No, I think I love what you said because these are all things we can do.
yeah,
But we just have to be aware in the moment that we have some choices, I think is the idea, right? We just have to become aware that I don't have to stay in this space.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that I'm so glad you said it the way you did, because I think we as humans often feel like what we've always felt or what we feel in the moment, uh, we don't have a choice about because we've always felt it, or that's always our, typical, I don't like using the word always, but has been our habitual response over time. And a lot of the insights I find people have when I'm working with them is that this is a habit. This response served me well at some point. I talk a lot about the first step on the bus and first neural pathways that people develop because they helped them. They were appropriate. They were right for their childhood or their adolescence or in school or whatever, but they don't work as well in adulthood. They don't work when you're a grown up and the situation's changed and all that stuff. So it's the idea that recognizing that you and I have had this conversation before, that the voices in your head aren't necessarily yours,
Right.
right? It's the teacher, it's the mother, it's the sibling, it's the whatever. And it's choosing really what and who you are and how you want to be. But you have to notice first that it might not be you that's gotten into this habit. It's a part of you that responded in a really important way, and that is something we need to have a lot of gratitude for,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's not working so well for us now, boy, it sure helped us all along.
Mhm.
So we love it. We're grateful for it. We don't want to send it away. We just want to update it.
Yeah. Updated.
Right? Um, and so I loved how you said, that choice piece, because we actually, if we pay attention, we do have that power. Yeah,
And when we exercise that power, it can bring us hope for what's next.
exactly.
Tie all this
I love
together.
it. Keep that coming, Ginny. But you're so right. You're
Yeah.
so right.
Yeah.
Because it's part of that work you were talking about. Like if you're not in a good place when you're starting out in that conversation or on that bank line or whatever, how do we help ourselves get closer to something better? And I think, even one little feeling that gets to feel a little more neutral or a little better, or you know deciding we're going to pay attention to something that would make us smile, like a flower or a kid who's doing something funny, or whatever. It makes that difference. It gives us that lightheartedness to, oh, maybe things aren't so bad,
Mm,
right?
yeah. Well, Liz, you ended your article with this, which gives me hope. The most hopeful truth is that we humans are capable of this. We can step back, be thoughtful, and show kindness and compassion to ourselves and others. These are the most essential ingredients for a healthy world, healthy relationships, and healthy conversations. Thank you for that. And do you want to add anything as we wrap up here?
you know I'm really glad I wrote that. I think that you're right, that those words are pivotal for our relationships and having a hopeful and better world. And I think I don't want to date this YouTube, but I think a lot of people are having concerns about um, being in the world at the moment. And you know, I think really just finding ways to come from the heart, finding ways to listen,
Mhm.
finding ways to try and understand the stuff we don't understand or the people we don't understand can be really helpful, just to make sense of where we are in our lives and wherever we live and all of that. So I don't know that that's so much any wiser than what I said. Probably what I wrote is way more.
Bit of an explanation of it, though. Yeah, yeah. Of course, it's wise. I've got to question my wisdom here, though, because I realized about 5 minutes ago that I was so anxious to jump into this conversation with you, and I've never done this before in an interview. I forgot to ask you to introduce yourself to us.
Well, you usually
Tell everybody how you got so smart and how you use that out in the world.
how say that again? Do
How
what?
you got so smart and how you use it out there.
So my name is Liz Goll Lerner. I have been working with people to help their lives transform for many decades now. And um, I find that work really exciting. And um, one of the things, there are two things that are coming up that I think are exciting and may help some people, or interest some people, is my book finally is almost coming out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. Divorce Well and Thrive, Your Guide to Being Your Best Self Under the Worst Circumstances. And um, I was just actually having another conversation like this earlier today, and the person, and we were talking a little bit about that, and the person said, it sounds to me like that book would be really good for anybody in any relationship, whether they're having problems or not. And I said, I think that's really true. Because I had this little thought where it could be, the divorce book for life. Right. But so anyway, that's exciting, and that may be nice for some and helpful for some. And then we've been talking so much about communication. If it's okay with you, I'd like to mention my course that will be, I'm running a beta for very soon, called Enlightened Communication Through Luminous Living. And it's all about everything we've been talking about. Like, how do we identify those parts of self? How do we know where to come from to be that change in the world, kind of, but first to ourselves. And it was a live course, and now it's an online and live. So
Nice. Liz, if you can send me that link when we get off of here today, I will
yeah.
edit the text of the videos. It will be both on the Facebook and on the YouTube. So
Oh,
people
wonderful.
can check that out. Okay. So
Okay,
thank you for that. And again, my apologies. Don't let me get by with that again. Next time, just say, Jenny, what about me?
I always think of you as already introducing me, so I didn't even notice.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, first of all, just tell everybody your website. That's going to be in the text of the video as well, but just tell your website so they'll.
Okay. Okay. So there's yourinspiredchoices.com, and there's enlightenedcommunicationinstitute.com. Those are two ways that you can find me.
Wonderful. Liz, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you for
always.
sharing your wisdom, but also your hope. Your hope, because like you said, this is a time when some people are really hopeful and some people have lost hope, and some people are just kind of like me. I'm just kind of going back and forth a little bit here. But I think we all know what we need to do. I mean, no, not everybody. I don't know. I'm babbling right now. I just appreciate it because I need to be reminded. I need to be reminded. And
You
I'm sure
know, what you
people,
just said is like if we join hands and I mean metaphorically or
yeah,
really, and just kind of go, okay, like we've got each other,
mhm.
that's like a little glow of hope.
It is. It is so much, so much. And so is watching cute videos of my grandson, which I was before I got
That's the most hopeful.
so thanks again. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. For more information on the On Purpose Woman Global Community and Magazine, you can go to my website, opwgc.com, and check out all of that information. That's also in the text of this video. And also be sure to check out Liz's information in the text of the video. And for more interviews with amazing women living their lives on purpose and making their unique impact, check out our YouTube channel. That link is also in the text of this video. Thanks for watching.